Hi everyone, this is Dapper Ambition. I'm your host Nalani Selva Singham. Joining me today, I have the one and only author SK Selva. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and thank you for coming on. So you have your first debut novel releasing on July 17th.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get this episode out before that so everyone can see it and then be like, "Oh my god, this sounds
Oh
so
yeah.
crazy. I'm going to go and get this book like right now."
The
So
more
it's
buyers, the better.
Of course, of course. And the novel title is The Demon's Return. So this is you're planning to do like a fantasy series, right?
Yes.
The Legends of Illa. Is it Ilamuria? Like how would I
Yeah.
pronounce that?
Yeah. Ilamuria.
So where did that come from, or where did that title come from?
Well, I wanted to do something about a fantasy world, and then when I started getting into more like the Tamil mythology and Tamil lore, I remember my dad telling me about it, and my sister-in-law, she's really into this stuff. She told me about it, and then they was called Lemuria, and that was kind of like the British term for it. And I know like
Okay.
the Tamil people, they actually called it the Kumari Kandam, right?
Okay.
So yeah, and so the Tamil people kind of like Tamilicized Lemuria, called it Ilamuria. So I'm like, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna use that one because it sounded so much cooler, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I just put legends at the beginning because that sounded cool too.
For sure. Wait, so Kumarikara, I've kind of heard about it in the past, but is that like a lost island, kind of like Atlantis
Yeah,
kind of a situation?
yeah, that's exactly what it is. So it's apparently it was in the Indian Sea, and then there's different kind of variations of it. Some people say that there was like a connection between Sri Lanka and India. Other people just say it's like just its own landmass there, and it got lost at sea. But there's a lot of legends on how that's where the original Tamil society was born. You know, the language and all that type of stuff,
Okay.
right? There's like different
Oh,
stories. They get passed down from different people. So
for sure.
yeah.
And like I think I saw on your Instagram when you posted like something about how your dad is someone that taught you
Oh
all
yeah.
this stuff and these stories. And I was like so fascinated because I never heard any story, like my parents never passed down anything like that to me. And like I only know like the party who made vada, like those are
Oh
the only
yeah.
kind of stories that got passed on. So I didn't even realize there was this whole other, like in terms of Tamil mythology, stuff that's not religious based, but just on the
Mhm.
other side, you know what I mean? Like completely different from that. Like I never realized that that was actually a thing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stories. 'Cause there's a lot of authors from like over the centuries who have wrote about a mythical land, and then like I know a couple hundred years ago they didn't really have scientific evidence about it. They just said, "Oh yeah, it does exist," and we had to take their word
Mm-hmm.
for it. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the early 1900s, there was a couple of people who actually said, "Oh yeah, there is a possibility of this." Lately, some scientists have said like, "No, it's impossible," but it's still because you can't lose an entire landmass that big
Right.
somehow or something like that. But it's still crazy to hear about the stories and things like that because when a legend gets passed down, there's a little bit of truth in there. So trying to pick out which part is true and which part would
Sure.
actually happen, like I would need a time machine to figure that out. But still,
Yeah, because it's pretty much like a broken telephone kind of a situation,
yeah.
right? You don't know if you're getting like you said, the truth behind it.
Mhm.
But you're so I'm always stressing the importance of reading, which is why I was like so keen
Yes.
on asking you and having you on the podcast. You also shared there's another author. There's a couple has a
Oh
couple
yeah.
novels. Sorry, what was his name? Because I did get the
It was
books, but
Janat Vijay. He has his own company called Vijay Publications.
oh, so he publishes his own books.
Yeah, he publishes it there, but he also has them self-published on Amazon, which is what I'm doing as well.
Oh, okay, awesome. Okay, so that's okay. Well, we'll get to that, like how people would be able to purchase your books. But that, like, I remember reaching out or just messaging you because I was so glad that you shared his
Mhm.
novel because there was really like I wouldn't have found out any other way. And I purchased both of his books. They're just like on my to do list of books that
Yeah.
I still need to read. But I do
Mhm.
have them, and I'm really excited to read those novels as well. But where did your love for reading, where did it begin? Like how old were you?
Yeah, I guess it started as a kid. I loved stories, and then you had the original picture books like Franklin, Berenstain Bears. I loved
Oh,
those.
sorry,
Yeah,
I'll come back to the Berenstain Bears bit, but yeah, go on, yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, those were so good. And then I kind of started reading novels a lot earlier than
Hmm.
other people. I started with like Goosebumps. That was my favorite growing up. And then I actually wrote a story when I was in grade 3. and then I made sure this was like by hand and paper, and I made sure I tried to make it as long as possible. So I double
Mhm.
spaced it, wrote big letters and everything like that. It probably ended up it came up to like 40-ish pages, but if I were to type it out, it was probably only like 2 pages worth. That's how much it was. So, but that was one of my earliest ones. But I kept reading afterwards, and then Harry Potter came out. That one I got
Mhm.
the fifth, sixth, and seventh book the first day, and I finished all those
Yeah.
on the first day. You know, I like just reading because it takes my eyes away from the TV, right, and take
Sure.
away from a screen, and then that type of stuff really, really, I enjoyed the story part of it.
Right. So after Goosebumps, did you graduate to like Fear Street and stuff? Because like that's
Oh yeah,
exactly what I did. Like I got obsessed with Fear Street. Like once I got a little bit older, and the Goosebump books were a little bit like
yeah.
childish for me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Carl Stein had like different levels of Fear Street books. He had some that were on the same level as Goosebumps, and then he had one for like
Hmm.
older teens and stuff like that. I didn't really read the teens ones. Like I kept to that level. I still have them. They're right
Oh,
there on the thing,
really?
right? Like,
Okay, so Berenstein Bears. Have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?
no, I know who
Okay.
Mandela is, but
Yes. Okay. So Nelson Mandela, obviously. So it's named after him because there's people that swear to this day that they remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison when he
Mhm.
was incarcerated.
Oh yeah,
Okay, and there's like a lot of people. This is not just like a few people that remember, but he didn't. Like he
hmm
came out afterwards, right, and lived.
yeah.
So, but there people are so like just obsessed with the fact that no, like they remember it happening. So just like that, Berenstein Bears. So you know it's
hmm
Berenstain Bears, right?
I think I've read this somewhere before with an A, right?
Yeah, which is I'm like it's absurd. There's no way it's Berenstain Bears. It's Berenstein Bears because
Yeah.
why else have I always pronounced it Berenstein Bears? Like that makes no sense to me. But if you go back and look at books, it's actually Berenstain or Berens.
I
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
with an A. Yeah, I think I've read that somewhere before, and I was like, oh wow,
yeah.
I did not. Yeah, I did not know that.
You know what I mean? It's so
Yeah,
crazy, but yeah, like that's a little bit off topic. But but so it's just like you just started reading as in like you were just taking out books from the library and just it's
yeah.
just
Some
something that
books
you
from the
got into.
library, and then there's always those scholastic book fairs in elementary school. And then sometimes they would send you a flyer as well with books you can order. Oh, I love those. Those were. I always asked. That's what I
Mhm.
asked my dad for growing up, and I guess those were some of the few things. He's like, you know what, I will buy those. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember like when I was in grade one, because my parents never purchased like books and stuff for me. It was just not
Mhm.
something that, even like toys. It was just they never bought me stuff really, right, as a
Right. Right.
child. So it wasn't until grade one I remember a book order. There was Scholastic. There was a second book order that we used to get to, but like I can't remember what the name is, and no everyone I speak to, no one remembers what it was called. But
Mhm.
I remember getting book ordered. And I remember being so excited because I was like, okay, like I'm actually going to be able to like get something. And then I remember
Yeah.
taking it home and showing my mom and being like, oh, we can order from here. And I just thought it was just like such a novel idea for me, right?
Yeah.
Like this was like something new. Like I've never experienced this before. I was so excited. And my mom was like, yeah, like, why don't you circle the stuff that you want? And then I'll take a look and then I'll get you something. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, cool. So I'm circling like sticker books, coloring books, like just like stuff that's like fun, but nothing that's really like reading. Cause I was only like
Right.
6 years old, right?
Right.
So I just wanted like something exciting and like, I don't know, it was just like nothing reading related. And then I gave it to her. And then like I remember a couple weeks later when the book order actually like came in, the books came in. And then the teacher was like telling everyone, oh, come, gather in the reading area, like come and sit down, like your orders came in. And I remember being so excited and sitting there. And then the
Mhm.
first book that the teacher took out was this thick, like Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah,
Like
I
there's like a
remember
novel
that.
series. So it was like this thick, and the teacher took that was the first book she took out, and everyone started like laughing, like because we're little kids and we're like, oh, like who got this book? Like it's such
Yeah.
a big novel, and everyone's laughing, and I'm also like laughing, but I knew like deep down inside my mom did me dirty. Like I knew
Oh
she
yeah,
did
she
something,
got you that one.
and then she was just like, oh yeah, this is for Nalani, and I was like, oh, I'm like, are you kidding? But like that was my first like memory of me actually reading. And my mom, she never did schooling past like grade 10 or grade 12, right? Like,
Hmm.
so she doesn't really know English that well. But every night she used to sit with me and we would read maybe like one page or two pages because it was like
Hmm.
really small font. So we would sit and read like one or two pages. And like, I think that's like how it started for me. So like, I'm just like, reading is like life. Like, I'm part of
Yeah.
a book club too, which is like, it's like such
Oh,
a old person thing to do, but
no,
my
I think
like
it's
my
great. I think
yeah,
there should be more
right.
book clubs. Yeah.
So you said you started writing in grade three. Like, do you still have that novel or the
No,
story?
that was on a piece of paper, pieces of
Do
paper.
you
I have
remember
no
what it
idea
was
where it is.
about?
Yeah, it was something like I think it was very similar to Power Rangers, where there was like a group of five kids who became like superheroes and saved the world from some medieval like evil knight or something like that.
Okay, so you're always like into that like fantasy
Fantasy, yeah.
writing.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. That's so cool. What was your like next project or next,
I
I think you
actually
said something about writing fan fiction and stuff for Harry Potter,
Yeah,
but.
I did. I didn't write again for a while after that because I
Mhm.
was more into reading. But then when I got to high school, I just started something. It was in the summer. I didn't work in the summer. I was too busy playing soccer. So in one summer, I wrote, and this was actually a nonfiction, a story there. And I was surprised that when I typed it out, it actually came out to like 100 pages. But this one wasn't. I didn't like edit it, or and I didn't. I just as soon as I didn't like redraft or anything. So that one's in the back burner. Hopefully I have it still somewhere. But then the summer
Yeah.
after that, I
Hmm.
wrote another fantasy one, and this one again I only did one draft, but this is where I have so much appreciation for my dad because he got it printed, and this is before the days of Google. So he asked
Hmm.
around, and then like Tamil people sometimes they're uncomfortable talking to other non-Tamil people, but
Sure.
he did his thing and he started talking to like non-Tamil people, and then he found a connection where they had a publishing company. And he tried to send the book to them for me,
Oh,
and yeah, and
that's so
then
sweet.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they kind of rejected it. They saying that it needs a bit more work and anything like that. But like, I'll never
Hmm.
forget what my dad trying to do that for me, right?
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
why like years later, the K in SK Selva actually is my dad's nickname, right?
Okay.
So because I couldn't put my full name in there, that's not really an
Yeah.
author's name, but like now I can go by this, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I've been writing for a while. I tried to get that first one published, but then now that I knew how to self-publish, that really helped.
Did you take any writing courses, like creative
No,
writing? Nothing
I
at
took
all.
I took writer's craft in high school. That was
Okay.
it. That was it.
Yeah.
And then in university, because like I did engineering, all the writing I did were like design documents. So nothing
Okay.
creative,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but a lot of the writing tips I learned, I got online.
So okay, so if you're self-publishing, then you didn't really have to go through any like rewrites or anything like that, or how did
Uh,
that process work?
so the thing about self-publishing, it's so easy, especially through like different companies like Amazon, Ingram Sparks, and there's a bunch of vanity press as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can publish a book through them. So even if you write like a draft for the first time and you just send it to them, they'll publish it for you. So
Oh,
that means the quality is not always there. So I
sure.
did my first draft, and then I printed it out, and then I wrote it and I rewrote it, and I went through like 4 or 5 times before I finally got to the point where like, what, this is the final version. And then
Yeah.
I found an editor and I hired him, and I asked him, and he did 2 edits for me. One to make sure that the story flowed, and then the
Mm-hmm.
other to make sure that the grammar and sentences were all good in that. And then
Sure.
so he's the only one who's actually read it so far, and he told me that he enjoyed it. So I'm like, I don't know if he actually just told me this, but then I saw his like the other people that books that he edited, and he ripped them apart. So for me, he's like, oh, I enjoyed it. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll take your word
Yeah.
for it.
That's really
And,
good. So,
yeah,
okay, so not even you're married, so not even your wife
yeah.
has read it, or she's waiting for the
She
release
knows
date
she
too.
knows the story. She knows the story because like sometimes I talk to myself
Okay,
while I'm
okay.
doing it, and then she thinks I'm talking to her, but sometimes I am, right? And so I'm like, okay, if I
Yeah.
did this, I did that, and all that. So she knows the story. She has her own copy, but she's waiting for like the release date.
Mhm.
She's like, like I'll read it with everybody else. I'm like, okay.
When did this whole like writing start? Like when did you start writing? We're actually working on this novel.
Yeah, so it all started because of COVID, actually, because last March, I spend a lot of time on the soccer field, like either coaching or
Mm-hmm.
playing. And
Mm-hmm.
so when the schools closed down, we had to close down our soccer program. And I couldn't play for my team anymore either. I couldn't practice with them. So I was legit just sitting there one day, and I'm not the type of guy that like I can sit around and do nothing. I have to be doing something. So my sister-in-law is actually doing Amuda Learns, a children's book where children learn how to Tamil.
I
And
had her
so,
on the podcast actually.
oh yeah, Subhangi,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
wicked.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so she was telling me about how she was writing the book, and I thought, you know what? If I have all this, I don't think I'm ever gonna get this time again.
Mm-hmm.
So I started like researching, and I had no ideas at that time. So I started researching like writing prompts, and I think I went through at least a couple hundred because like I don't want to write about this. I don't want to write about this. All fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
eventually I narrowed it down to about three of them, and I kind of mixed those stories together. And then my first draft was actually very just whatever. And
Yeah.
so it was only on the second draft where I started trying to bring in the Tamil elements into it, like Lemuria and like those ancient villages and all that type of stuff. And then by the
Mm-hmm.
time I got to the third and fourth draft is when I really started, okay, you know what? I got a story here.
Did you
So
like run anything by your dad, or like did you like
they
revert back to
well,
him for more info?
sometimes, yeah, I asked him like, "Oh, what was this? What was that?" But then I could only do it over the phone, right? Because like we weren't
Mm-hmm.
allowed to visit each other.
Yeah.
But I had like a bit of like I was a bit shy about telling people that I was writing this book. So the only people that knew were like my family and my wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
So and then after a while, like I started gaining confidence, especially after the editor told me he really liked it. So that's when I started telling other people. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, all right, let's start promoting this. Let's start making the Instagram account. Let's start doing all that stuff, right?
That's so
And here we
awesome.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, like so basically like not even a year and a half and your
Yeah.
first book is coming out. Like
Yeah, I
that's
was
intense.
lucky. Yeah, I was lucky because sometimes when I started writing the first draft, I hated it because I was trying to write the perfect sentence
Mm-hmm.
right at the first draft, and then I looked online at some people who have also published books, and then I was part of this like online community, and they were saying, "Listen, your first draft, like if you don't have a name, if you don't know this, just call the character Bob or something, and come back to it
Mm-hmm.
later. You just need to get the actual story down, not the perfect like sentences and things like that."
That
So
makes sense.
as soon as I got that, like my first draft was pretty much point form. Like, and
Yeah.
this happens. Then he walked into the store. Then he bought something. Then he walked out. Like that. That was my first draft.
Right.
And it's only like the third draft where I was like, okay, you know what? Let me try and fix up the sentences, make it sound nice.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense, which, because I mean, like, because you could get just so bogged down with all the details that you don't really just get out what you need to get out, right? And
Yeah.
I've written like smaller, very small things, and I know like when I just write it and I feel like okay, like this is good, and then when I reread it, I'm like, okay, no, this could be said better. This, I could make this more succinct, or like I
Mm-hmm.
go through those changes, but just to have a whole novel that you have to do like that, like I just feel like it just seems so like overwhelming for me. Like I don't know
Yeah.
how you did it.
I had my eyes on the end goal. So I was just like, you know what? I know other Tamil authors who have done like children's book, who have done nonfiction books or anything like that, but I think I don't know another. There probably is out there, and I just don't know about it. But I didn't know any other Tamil author who did like a fantasy novel
Mhm.
that's like Tamil or South Asian inspired, right? So I'm like, okay, I can finally
True.
break into this market for the first time, right?
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
did you always feel like you want to do a series, or is it like you're writing the first book and then you're like, hey, this is probably something I could turn into something more?
Yeah, that was exactly it. I had the idea in my head, but then I had so much story that I was like, okay, I can't finish this all in one book unless it's going to be like thousands of pages, right?
Right.
And so this allows me to pretty much spread it out, add a bit more details, develop more of the characters, develop more of like the land and the background and all that, so that we
Mm-hmm.
get like a true taste of what my world in there is like.
Nice. So do you know how it's going to end, or how you envision this ending, or is that still
Yeah,
open?
I have an idea. I have like the general idea of how it is, but that can change at any time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what
Oh
if
no, for sure.
yeah, if I think of something that comes up randomly, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm throwing that in there. Yeah.
So I guess like one good thing about self-publishing is because I mean, have you watched Jane the Virgin?
No,
Or
I
do you
haven't.
know about the show? It's not really a dude
Uh,
show, but like
I've heard of it, but I would never watch something like that.
okay. Okay, well my husband watched it, okay, and he was very much
Oh,
into it. I'm like
maybe I should ask Akash how good it
yeah,
is.
putting him on blast. But
Yeah,
so in that show, the main character is writing a novel,
yeah,
right? So they show like her like obviously going to publishing companies and then them reading it and giving her pointers like, you got to change this part or the ending, you have to change it.
mhm,
And I was like, it just seems like so hard because especially when you've written it and when you feel like you're ready to hand it off to someone to edit it or do anything, even if it's not a publishing company, just to edit it, and they came back and asked you to change something that you were so set on, because like for me, I'm a little stubborn in that
mhm.
if my mind is set like this is perfect, like no one is going to convince me otherwise. Like I'm
Right,
always
right.
going to be like no, 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 like I'm sure like my idea is better than whatever you're telling me, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I'm assuming you didn't have to go through any of those where someone thought that you should change something quite major in your
yeah,
novel just to make it for in their eyes better, like a better
yeah.
read.
The editor I had, he suggested some things, but it was nothing major. He would just say, if this scene it doesn't flow so well, maybe you should change what the character is saying here or anything like that.
Okay.
And that was it. He wasn't gonna tell me, oh, this entire thing needs to be changed or this doesn't make sense or anything like that. So I was very happy with well, he was very happy with the work. So I was like, okay, I guess that makes me happy too. Like, yeah.
And where can people buy the book?
Amazon. It's print on demand. So as soon as somebody orders the book, the Amazon printing. It's actually only the last few years that they opened up a shop in Canada like that. Like before,
Oh.
when you ordered it, it would have taken longer because they print it in the States and then they bring it up here. But in the lot, it's actually I think it's in Etobicoke actually, so that's good. So whenever
Hmm.
I did a practice order to like different places, like I ordered one to my cousin in Montreal just to make sure it got there. It comes in like 2 days. Thank
Oh,
God.
nice. Well, it's
So
like the Amazon distribution centers like everywhere. Is that where they do it, or is it like a different
no,
place?
it's a specific place, one spot,
Okay.
and then it goes to the Amazon distribution center, and they send it out.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
So right now it's just available on Amazon then,
yeah.
right?
For
And
for
it's print
now,
to order.
yeah. And I'm going to see like how much traction I get, and then I've gone into like a couple of chapters and be like, so how do I get my book here? And they say, oh, come back in August when we need more titles. I said, okay, fine, I'll be back. But I'm not the most convincing or anything like that, so I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
work
yeah,
on
yeah.
that part of myself.
Yeah. No, like selling yourself is probably one of the hardest things,
Yeah,
right? And like
yeah.
I have that same personality. If someone was to say no, like it's just like, oh, okay, like like
Like have a
it's
nice
not like
day,
I'm
all
gonna
right.
stay here until you
Yeah,
say like like I can bring it, and like like I'm not that
yeah.
adamant.
Yeah, neither am I. It's like, okay, fine, I'll try another time.
Uh, okay, so I know. Okay, you said you play soccer, you coach
Yeah,
soccer. So because you weren't able to do that, it opened up a lot of free time for you. But
yeah.
what is that your full time job, or is it
No,
related to that somehow?
no,
You have something else that you do.
no. I'm an engineer, but like
Okay.
I work as a product owner, product manager for not a startup. It's called My Planet. So we help like companies, and one of the companies we help actually is Indigo. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get right into the right spot right
Yeah.
there. So we help them with their online presence and make sure that a lot of people are being really, really using their websites and all that type of stuff very, very efficiently and help them with their marketing and help them with all that. So it's a bit further away from what I studied in engineering, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the company. So that's what I do during the day. And then
Nice, nice.
coaching was at night because that helped me get out, not just away from a computer screen. It just helped me because me and my friends, we helped found that program. Right.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I
And
had like
what's the name, if you
the
want to just put it?
Dynamo Elite Athletics, and we're partnered with Wexford. So I
Okay.
actually have 3 kids signed to the Toronto FC's academy, probably who came out of
Wow.
my thing. Yeah, so those kids were
That's
superstars from the beginning. I fine tuned it for about 3 years before sending them over there.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. That's
Mhm.
really exciting. But we're
Yeah.
really like sports people too. That's like we're
Oh
really
yeah.
into that. Even though I don't really like soccer, like I'm not the biggest fan, but
That's all
I mean,
right.
if I have a team to root for, like I'll watch.
Yeah. like the World
Who'd you
Cup or the
want in the
Euros.
UEFA? Yeah, like UEFA Cup. Like who did you want to win?
I wanted an underdog team to win, like a team that you
Hmm.
wouldn't expect from the beginning, because I just want to watch it to watch some like good soccer. At the end, I did want England to win, right?
Yeah.
But it was unfortunate what happened there. But
It's so
yeah,
rough. I feel like because again I'm not such an avid soccer watcher. Like
yeah,
when I even watch a little bit of it, and when it goes into overtime, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's not even sudden death. Like they're just going to keep playing another like
yeah,
40 minutes or whatever the amount of time is,
yeah,
and then or extra time, not even yeah.
yeah, and
And
then
then
penalty
but then
shots.
I'm like, they should just do penalty kicks. Like they should just do that. Like what the heck? But then when the game is decided on penalty kicks, that also breaks my heart because I'm like,
Yeah.
but that it could have just went any way. Like it's so heartbreaking.
Over the years, honestly, different FIFA tournaments, whether it's like the South American tournament or the European tournament or like the World one, the World Cup,
Hmm.
they've experimented with that. And so before it used to be that in that extra 30 minutes, if you scored the goal right away, then the game was done. That was it.
Okay.
Now they make it that so you play the entire thing. And then there's other tournaments where you go straight to penalty shots, right? So there's
Mm,
been different variations. They're still trying to like fine tune it to see where to go from there because the game's ever
yeah.
evolving. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it
Because like
goes.
when
Yeah.
you yeah, like if you win, like yeah, like it's exhilarating and it's such an amazing way
Oh
to
yeah.
win, but it's also such a terrible way to lose by
Yeah.
just like penalty kicks, which is really just like the luck of the draw. Like I mean, like it could really go to anybody, and it's
Yeah.
and for the everyone who misses that shot, like I don't, I just
I've
can't.
been in their shoes. Not at the same level as like a European tournament, but
Yeah.
at like I play in a lot of talent tournaments here. Shout out to Sea Waves. And
Oh no,
yeah,
like I know people that played in Sea Waves and stuff, but like they're
oh,
probably way older than you. So like
oh
yeah,
no, I played with all the older people on Sea
you know
Waves. We are
Ashok. I
yeah,
shouldn't say people's
Ashok's my
names.
boy, man. It's my guy. Ashok, Netter, and all them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, all right.
Yeah, man. Love those guys.
Oh. So even if you didn't have soccer to occupy your time in the evenings, how did you still find that balance? Because I feel like, I mean, if you're working a full-time job, and then in the evenings, it's not soccer is at least it's a little bit more. You kind of just like it's just exerting energy, right? You're just
Yeah.
going and playing, and it's more physical, like not as much mental. But this is just okay. Now you force yourself to sit down and write, and like,
Yeah.
how did you manage that, or how were you able to do it?
I always prided myself. Like I always thought I had really, really good discipline when it came to certain things. So for me, it was like, I had an end goal of where I wanted to be. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the beginning, when I started writing, I was like, yo, can I actually do it? But when I saw how easy it was going to be to actually self-publish, at the
Yeah.
beginning, my idea was just, I'm just going to have a book and just have it out so that friends and family can read. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started marketing myself and started talking to other people, it's just like, oh, people are actually really interested in this book,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that kind of gave me more of a motivation. And the way I saw it is I only had to write like 2-3 pages a day. And then some days I didn't hit that every day. Like some days I couldn't do it. There was a time period of like 2 months where I was so swamped with work I didn't do anything. But then
Mm-hmm.
there were other days where I was just on a roll and I just kept going and going and going and going because I was just like, yeah, this can be sick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I do have a little bit of anxiety actually releasing it. I really, really hope that people like the book. So the only review I have right now is the editor.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he said it was good, and I'm assuming he's read like thousands of books. So if he said it was
Mm-hmm.
good, then he might have something there. So I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
hope. I just dropped off the books for my giveaway winners just now. So
I think one of my friends was one of the winners too. I saw it. And I'm like, okay, like because I get like I wanted to do it, and then I
yeah.
was just like, ah, and it just kind of went. But I'm gonna get my. Can you pre-order, or is it you have to
No,
wait until the release
unfortunately,
date?
Amazon you can't pre-order. But I
Okay,
honestly,
okay,
I just have to press a button right now, and then in like 2-3 hours, it'll be up live.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like that, I'm so. It's almost like I'm releasing my own novel. Like that's
uh,
what I.
I'm
I'm just
getting a
so
little scared.
excited for you.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
Really like awesome. Did you experience writer's block at any time, or was it
Yeah.
a constant thing, or how did you get past it? Like, what helped you?
I just stopped writing, and then I
Yeah.
just went and watched like a TV show or something like that, and then I came back. I tried to set a goal for like words per day or
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
pages per day at the beginning, and it
Mm-hmm.
was I had more writer's block at the beginning, but when I got to like the second and third and fourth drafts, at that point in time, I was like, okay, like I already have the base skeleton. I just gotta like add the heart and the muscles and the brain and all that type of stuff.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about the book? Or
Not so
not missing
much. I'm
anything?
just like, get all your friends to buy it and your
Yeah.
family and get their friends and family to buy it too.
No, for sure. I'm gonna blast the shit out of this, and I really can't
Okay.
wait. And I have a little library that I set up in front of my house,
Yeah.
like this little library where I put like books in there and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna get like, a couple copies. I'm gonna put
Oh,
it in
oh.
there, so everyone else can read it too. And
Yeah.
then hopefully when the next book comes out, then they'll be like, hey, like I wanna like make go out and actually get it for myself as well. Like
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
My goal is like 1,000 copies. If I sell that, then I'll be happy. But then I started
Yeah.
doing the math, and I'm like, if I sell 40,000 copies, I could do this full time, which is a big number. But one book at a time.
Were you like, oh, if I had to go, you know how when they do publishing deals, it's like,
Yeah,
it's like always like a two book deal. So it's like you have this one,
yeah.
fine, but we also expect you to write another one.
Oh,
Like
I
that's
am. I'm not gonna. The book ends on a cliffhanger, so like I can't leave
yeah,
people like wondering what's gonna happen. Right, so we'll see. Like
yeah,
I know it's really, like I was talking to my editor too, and he said it's really really hard to make a living off of doing this. Right, he doesn't really
hmm,
know anyone who does, but it's to see your name in print. That for me, that was a surreal feeling. But
yeah.
there is that little bit of me that imagines like like Gautam Menon or M Night Shyamalan giving me a call, be like, we want to make a movie out of this. Like, all right,
I never considered it, but since you're asking, yeah, I think we can make it happen.
yeah, yeah,
That would be so amazing.
yeah, it's like have your people call my people. Which I don't really have any people, so have them call me
Which is
directly.
me. I will answer the phone, but
Oh yes,
let's just make it more official.
yeah. And if that happens, we're like, all right, let's go, let's do this.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And also, don't forget to pick up your copy of The Demon's Return on Amazon July 17th. You got
Perfect.
it?
Yeah. Grateful
Thankful.
and blessed.
There you go.
All right.
All
Perfect.
right. I was actually looking forward to this. I straightened my hair, which I never straighten my hair. And then it
Oh,
was pouring rain at one point. I got
oh
stuck
yeah.
outside. And then I was like, there goes that.
Okay,
There
I did
goes
my
that.
hair too.
I can see it. I
Yeah.
see.